It was here on this long crescent of beach in South Wexford that the Norman Fitzstephen and his 150 bowmen and assorted camp followers landed 800 years ago. They were offered little resistance, so they stayed. Their descendants are still farming and fishing here, a land once bleak and barren, but transformed by them into a model agricultural landscape, the prosperity of which was acclaimed when much of Ireland lay in desolation. This is the country of the Norman Tower, the graceless keep, the bleak and slitted eye. Bargy Castle, home of Bagnall Harvey, the 98th man, whose forebears once kept watch from these battlements. The early Normans were a most conservative people who spoke their own dialect of English until the middle of the last century, and who rarely intermarried with the native Irish. As early as 1580, a traveller spoke of their snug thatched houses. This is Kilmore Quay. In the olden days, all the houses, barns and sheds were roofed with a golden thatch. This thatch windmill at Tecumseh was built in the early 19th century. It's still in working order, though it's no longer used nowadays. You can thatch with reeds or with barley straw, or with wheaten straw, or with bent. But they'll tell you hereabouts that oaten straw is best. It's more pliable, tougher, and more easily worked. John Rochford, whose forebears have farmed here since Fitzstephen's time, grows oats in abundance. A fair September morning, a day dry enough to reap the harvest of oats. John, Joe, Raymond and Rosie head for the fields. The land hereabouts is well suited to the growing of oats, a heavy marly clay. A sight no longer common in many parts of Ireland. This 6-foot Albion power-driven reaper and binder was new 40 years ago. It cuts the corn, which then falls on what's called a platform canvas. 2 other canvases take the corn off the platform and up to a tying mechanism. When there's enough corn fed to this to make a sheaf, a tripping mechanism throws it out, tied and knotted with binder twine. The Rochfords plant 6 acres of oats in April, a long-strawed variety specially for the thatcher. They still use the old-fashioned reaper and binder because the modern combined harvester is totally unsuitable for cutting straw to be used in thatching. For one thing, the combine cuts it too high. Apart from that, it's inclined to break the straw, or at best to make it brittle. This is one of Ireland's most renowned horse breeding areas, and the golden harvest of oats is eagerly bought up by the Wexford breeders, as oats saved and dried in the stook are much preferred by livestock than the artificially dried combine harvested grain. The last part of the day's work, propping the sheaves up against one another to make stooks. Now, who said Rosie wasn't doing her bit? The day is close and men get thirsty at this kind of work.
starting to rain.
In a bad summer, cereals harvested in this way can often be more easily saved. After 2 weeks in the stook, the sheaves can be brought directly into the barn or made up into small stacks of 8 to 10 sheaves to protect them from the weather. The reaper and binder hasn't bound this sheaf. John makes a sugan, a straw rope, to tie it. A November day dawns after a night of rain, this promise of a clearance later. The thrashing day has arrived. The Rochford boys prepare straw, coal and kindling for their pride and joy, this magnificent 19th century engine.
Rosie, will you give me the stick?
This old lady will raise a fair good head of steam in about an hour's time. She's not fussy what she burns. Turf, timber, coal, all will do. But special steam coal is best. Unobtainable today. Young Willie does the spit-on job. Did you ever see an engine man without a rag hanging out of his back pocket? The farmer's friend. She's a 6-horsepower Marshall single-traction engine, built in 1889 in Gainsborough in England. She left Marshall's work on the 2nd of August of that year. Her first owner was a Canon Bagot of Athy, a retiring clergyman whose parishioners presented him with a thrashing set. When John Rochford found her, she had laid derelict in a field for 20 years. It's entirely due to his loving care and attention that she's as good as new today. She's believed to be Ireland's second oldest working engine. The engine reservoir holds 150 gallons of water, which will be gradually pumped into the boiler to make the steam to drive the piston. John Rochford bought this Tullis thrasher new in 1947. Made in Aberdeen, she's a big one with a 4'6" mill, travelling at 11,000 RPM at full thrash. The next operation is to manoeuvre the steam engine into position so the belt can be fitted. Both engine and mill must be in line and dead level, or the belt will fly off. One of the wheels of the engine must also be chucked so she can't roll forward. straw elevator was built by Davis of Enniscorthy, a firm no longer in business after a century of manufacturing.
Willie, you see him down there?
It takes a full team of 15 men to fill all the jobs at a thrashing. Even the youngsters have an important job to do, removing the chaff. Everything is going smoothly. The golden grain is of first-rate quality. A bountiful harvest, 2.5 tons per statute acre. The farmer's friend, the Marshall engine, is thirsty today. She uses 50 gallons of water and 100 weight of coal per hour at full thrash. Steam pressure must be kept up and water constantly pumped into the boiler. A governor working on centrifugal force controls the speed and helps to maintain an even drive. And suddenly it's all over. A welcome sound for hungry men with tired limbs. Day's end and time for a bite to eat.
Girls, go wash your hands. You're welcome, man. Nice day. Come on, Dickie.
You want in half?
In the old days, people hereabouts had a lovely custom called Pogue Mell, at which the woman of the house was presented with the last sheaf of corn in return for a meal and a jug of ale. She gave every man a present, a kiss. Hence, Pogue Mell, from the Irish pogue, and the Anglo-Saxon mell, time. Pogue Mell, kissing time.
I'd be able to buy now and get it embroidered in it.
You smoke, John?
No.
The inner man satisfied, it's time to relax.
Fuel up the pipe, Dickie, in her hour.
Have you anything in it? Oh no,
At the bottom in, Tony.
that's not all of it.
16 Dickie.
Yeah.
16 barrels.
Pat Lambert has been on the farm all his life. He's an expert at pulling straw, making up the bundles of straw for the thatchers. All the loose pieces are shaken out, and the remaining straw coaxed into neat bundles, enough to fill a 4-foot rope.
How many is that, Pat?
3.
Brian Matthews drops in to buy straw for his house.
Came at the right time.
Oh, so it seems.
I'd say you're after straw today.
Yes, it looks that way.
You've got straw here before, Brian?
Oh, I did indeed, Pat. We've still got the stuff from some of it from 2 years ago, but we're running out now, John.
Couldn't be as good a straw as that, though, Brian.
It didn't seem as clean, John.
Oh, very good.
What are you charging for it this year?
Price will be all right.
Johnny McGrath from Mulrankin cuts sprays, sometimes called scallops or spidogs, from which the thatcher will make roofing staples. Black Sally is best, better than hazel, but all are getting less plentiful due to the destruction done by mechanical hedge trimmers. Thatchers used to come from far and near in the old days, when Johnny got 2 shillings a hundred for these. Nowadays they'll set you back £2 for 100 of them. A wallop in the centre makes the strong spray more pliable. Here's our thatcher, Paddy Casey. A fine day, thank God. Many, if not most, of the houses in the barony of Bargy have been thatched by Paddy. He's what you might call a thatcher's thatcher, the acknowledged master craftsman of South Wexford. His father came all the way from Kerry, thatching as he went. In his youth, Paddy was forced to go to England to earn his bread. Thatchers were then as plentiful as sloes in November, he says. Not so now. Paddy Casey is one of the last of them. Always make sure your ladder is well footed. For the next few weeks, Paddy will be thatching Brian Matthews' house. He thatched the front and the gables 3 years ago, leaving the back as it was still sound. The first job is to clear away the loose or rotten thatch and broken sprays to get down to a sound base. Then a bundle of straw, a handful of sprays, and most important, a knee pad and a comfortable stance.
Morning, Paddy.
Oh, right.
See, it's beginning to take shape.
Oh, yes. Coming to now.
What condition is the roof in?
Oh, it is good. Good, but it's a bit loose, you see.
At the bottom?
Well, mostly, yeah. Well, nearly all through.
Is it level?
Ah, not at all, no. It's very high there, you see. I'll have to pull that off of that, you know.
Does this part of the roof get much of the weather?
Oh, yes, because you're getting the storm here from the southeast, you see. The whole storm is right on it, you see.
Why is there moss on the back, Paddy? There was none on the
That
front.
happen where the house is not drying frequent, like, you know. See, in the front the house is drying as soon as it's wet, like a type of thing.
Yes, yeah.
And then they say here, it's not drying that much. Nevertheless, it's a good house, you know. Good, strong house, like.
To thatch a house, Paddy starts down near the wall. The handful of straw he works at a time is called a fletch, and it's driven home with a beating pin. Paddy works a strake at a time, a distance of about a foot between the ladder and the last strake. The overhang will be trimmed later. The loose straw is beaten in inch by inch, fletch by fletch, up to the pinnacle of the roof, called the cailleach. He rakes down the loose straw by hand as he goes. The secret of good solid thatch, Paddy says, is to put in an extra big fletch beside the ladder when you start. This acts as a wedge and can be plucked level afterwards. Jim is busy preparing cement for a plastering job on the walls. The straw has been well wetted for a week before being used. Dry straw gets loose very quickly in a newly thatched house. Paddy had his own beating pin made from the end of a broken hoe, with half a chain link welded to the end. 4 strakes a day thatched is considered very good going. The single glove Paddy wears protects his hands from getting prodded by broken sprays and old thatch. The average size house needs 400 bundles of straw. They prefer the oaten straw here in South Wexford, but they used to thatch outhouses and stables with bent grass from the sandhills, or bennet as it's called locally. It was pulled by hand and the roots were beaten in first.
Paddy, your cup of tea's here.
Lovely, beautiful.
That looks great, Paddy.
Not too bad.
Josephine Matthews, Brian's wife, with a welcome cup of tea.
That's a cold job up there this time of year.
Are you going to need that, Paddy? It's a cold wind today.
It's cold wind today.
Will you be able to stay on it?
Oh, I stay on it all right, if the wind don't get any worse than what it is.
Yeah.
Because you've no shelter here with any wind. You see this blowing around the place, ain't it?
Did you want to go inside and have it, Paddy?
Oh,
with your
no.
own?
Oh, no, it's all right outside.
Yeah. How long do you think it's going to take to finish the whole roof, Paddy?
About 4 weeks, if we could want to get it fine. And that's not going to happen now.
Is it just the rain that stops
Oh,
you?
well, if it rained heavy at night, you see, the roof would be wet in the morning and it'd be all dripping on these, so you'd have to leave it to dry. But it's not going to get any better. It won't be any better. It'll be worse, if any, I think. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're very welcome, Paddy.
Ní héalán a gí, héalán a scullab. The scallops, or sprays, are most essential. They are beaten into the roof to hold the wires that cross from gable to gable just below the ridge, protecting the roof in times of storm. The secret is to drive them well in below the thatch, so that the tops are not exposed. Paddy thinks highly of Johnny McGrath's sprays.
Another bundle. In, please.
Ian Matthews, back from school, gives Paddy a hand.
Well, watch it now. Go steady there because that ladder's crazy. Well, you might slip out of it. You were up aside before. Huh? Good man. Good boy yourself.
The thatcher's is a dying craft, in this a part of Ireland once famous for the beauty of its golden-roofed houses. Everywhere one sees the decay, for lack of thatchers more than anything else. Perhaps it might be as good a career as any for a young lad. The snug cottages that pleased so many travellers, from Richard Stanihurst in the 16th century to Thackeray in the 19th, are being allowed to fall into disrepair, eventually to be replaced by hideous modern bungalows. There aren't enough Paddy Caseys to work the fletches. Or as the poet put it, to leave them gaping at his Midas touch. Christmas in Kilmore. A time for Thanksgiving and the singing of the centuries-old carols that have been preserved and cherished in this South Wexford parish.
Saint Sylvester, so well deserves a song.
When supper was ended, he took the cup. Again he gave you thanks and praise. Gave the cup to his disciples and said, "Take this, all of you, and drink from it. This is the cup of my blood."
his predecessor stands risen.